In a highly anticipated moment during a live TV interview, veteran broadcaster and political commentator Andrew Neil dropped some shocking bombshells about the leader of the UK Labour Party, Keir Starmer. The revelations have sent shockwaves through political circles and captured the public's attention. But what was actually said, and what is the truth behind these explosive claims? In this article, we examine the key moments of the interview, the underlying political context, and the significance of these bombshells. Interview: a clash of titans. Andrew Neil is known for his no-holds-barred interviewing style, and he didn't hold back during his confrontation with Keir Starmer. The interview, broadcast on the BBC, started relatively calmly, but soon took a sharp turn when Neil began to question Starmer's leadership and political stance. Neil, a former editor of The Spectator and host of the BBC's This Week, has long been a fierce critic of all politicians. His reputation for asking tough, often uncomfortable questions makes him a formidable figure in British politics. In his interview with Keir Starmer, Neil pulled no punches, highlighting the problems within the Labour Party, Starmer's political record, and his leadership style. But it was Neil's revelations about Starmer's past, his internal party struggles, and his personal political ideology that grabbed the headlines. Let's break down some of the key moments and explore the truths behind them. One of the first bombs dropped by Andrew Neil, under scrutiny of Keir Starmer's leadership, was his questioning of Starmer's leadership skills. Neil, while acknowledging Starmer's legal background, expressed concerns about his effectiveness as a political leader. He suggested that Starmer, who succeeded Jeremy Corbyn as Labour leader in 2020, had failed to unite the party and had struggled to articulate a clear political vision. The series of questions was particularly timely as Keir Starmer's leadership has come under scrutiny since he took office. Many within the party, particularly those on the left, have criticised Starmer for abandoning the more radical policies that were central to Corbyn's leadership. The more centrist, cautious approach, away from promises such as free broadband and large-scale nationalisation, has left many wondering what Starmer means. Starmer has sought to position himself as a leader capable of leading Labour back to power after its crushing defeat in the 2019 general election. His pitch has focused on restoring public trust, particularly after the controversies of the Corbyn era. But critics, particularly from the party's left, have described Starmer as an opportunist unwilling to take bold stances for fear of alienating key demographics. Neil's comments on Starmer's inability to unite the party further added to the fire. Despite Starmer's promises of unity, factionalism within the Labour Party remains, whether it's the traditional Labour left, which feels sidelined by Starmer's moderation, or moderates who believe he's not bold enough. The internal divisions within the Labour Party have been clear. This tension makes it difficult for Starmer to present a coherent vision for the future, and Neil's criticism only highlighted this weakness. The internal chaos of the Labour Party. Perhaps the most explosive part of the interview was Neil's discussion of Labour's internal conflicts. While Starmer has faced the challenge of rebuilding the Labour Party after Corbyn, it has become increasingly clear that unity remains elusive. Andrew Neil highlighted the ongoing infighting within the party, where factions continue to clash over Starmer's policies and his leadership approach. A key point of contention is Labour's stance on issues such as Brexit. Starmer, a former Remain supporter, has sought to steer the party out of the Brexit chaos, with a vocal section within the Labour Party feeling that the party's post-Brexit strategy is not bold enough. Critics argue that Starmer has failed to capitalise on the perceived dissatisfaction many voters have with the way Brexit has been handled, leaving the party without a clear, compelling message on Europe. Adding to the party's woes, Starmer's handling of the Labour left has been less than smooth. Under his leadership, the party has expelled key figures from the party's left wing, including former allies of Jeremy Corbyn. The tensions between the old guard and the new, centrist leadership are evident under Starmer. For many, Labour has lost its identity as a working-class party and a left-wing force, with Starmer attempting to play centre ground, a strategy that has not always been welcomed by all. Neil's outbursts painted a grim picture of a party that is deeply divided and struggling to find its footing. While Starmer has worked hard to portray himself as a pragmatic leader, many within the Labour Party see his centristism as a betrayal of the fundamental principles that Labour once stood for. The truth about Keir Starmer's political ideology. Another key issue raised by Andrew Neil was Starmer's ideological flexibility, particularly his shift in key policy areas. Starmer has often been accused of being a man of many faces, whose political positions fluctuate with the political winds. Neil pointed out that this lack of consistency makes it difficult for voters to get a clear sense of what Starmer really believes. For example, Starmer was initially seen as a strong supporter of a second referendum on Brexit. However, as he took the leadership, Starmer softened his rhetoric, focusing more on completing Brexit and calling for unity. His support for Remain and a second referendum was replaced by a more cautious, pragmatic approach aimed at healing the divisions after the Brexit referendum. This flip-flopping left many questions as to where Starmer really stood on one of the most divisive issues of the decade. Furthermore, Neil highlighted Starmer's stance on issues such as nationalisation, public services, and climate policy. Under Corbyn, Labour pushed for bold policies, including the nationalisation of key industries such as rail and water. Starmer, by contrast, has been far more reluctant to embrace such radical changes. This shift in perspective has led some to argue that Starmer is simply trying to win over moderate voters, rather than fighting for the transformative agenda that Labour once championed. While Starmer's supporters say his pragmatism is necessary to appeal to a wider electorate, his critics see it as a sign of ideological weakness. Neil's bombast about Starmer's shifting positions exposes these concerns, presenting a leader who, some say, lacks the courage to stand firm on his beliefs. What does this mean for Starmer's future? The big question raised by Andrew Neil's interview is, what does all this mean for Keir Starmer's political future? The bombast that Neil drops, questioning Starmer's leadership, his ideological flexibility, and the ongoing infighting within the Labour Party, suggest that Starmer has a long way to go. If he is to regain the trust of the British public, Starmer's ability to unite the Labour Party and present a clear, coherent vision will be crucial in the years to come. With the next general election on the horizon, Labour will need to confront internal divisions and present a strong alternative to the Conservative government. Neil's scathing criticisms have sparked a wider debate about the state of Labour under Starmer. While some see Starmer as someone who can lead Labour back to power, others feel he lacks the charisma and ideological clarity needed to inspire a new generation of voters. Ultimately, whether Keir Starmer can rise above the turmoil and establish himself as a leader capable of leading Labour to victory remains to be seen. Andrew Neil's bombshells dropped on live TV have certainly added fuel to the fire, but the real test will be how Starmer responds, and whether he can chart a clear path forward for his party. The result, a turning point for Labour. The exchange between Andrew Neil and Keir Starmer was a critical moment in British politics. Neil's bombshells revealed deep concerns about Starmer's leadership, his party's internal struggles, and his political ideology. As the Labour Party prepares for the next general election, these revelations have added a layer of uncertainty about Starmer's ability to unite the party and lead it to victory. However, these bombshells are only part of a much larger political landscape.